Byron D. Athan has spent his lifetime serving his family, his community, and his country. After serving 24 years in the United States Army and 17 years as Santa Clara County Council, he became the City Attorney of San Ramon, serving on the city's Incorporation Committee. He retired as San Ramon's City Attorney and was elected to the City Council and served as mayor. He retired from elected office and became City Attorney again. He was honored by having one of the largest city parks in the city of San Ramon named for him, Athan Downs, and was honored to serve as interim city manager on 2 occasions. The following interview was taped April 20th, 2009, and includes Byron's personal account of his role in the incorporation of the city of San Ramon.
Hello, I'm Diane Schinnerer, and I had the great pleasure of being the first mayor of the city of San Ramon in 1983. And with me today is Mary Lou Oliver, who has served as mayor of San Ramon for 3 different times. And also with us today is By Athan, and he's the gentleman that we are here today for because we would briefly like to talk about the history that By has been involved in with the city of San Ramon, and even prior to that, in relationship to law, which obviously permeates everything that happened since the city incorporated in 1983.
And with that thought, Byron, could you tell us a little bit about incorporations prior to the incorporation in 1983?
Yes, the valley after World War II increased from approximately 2,000 up to 10,000, 11,000. And the incorporation involved really 3 Ps: planning, police, and parks. And the residents who would come to the area felt that they wanted to say in those 3 items. However, prior to Prop 13, the city could impose a tax. So every time it come up, the argument would be no new taxes, no incorporation. With Prop 13, it limits it to 1% tax for everybody, for the schools, for BART, for fire district, for all, including the city. And at that time, the cities began forming incorporation.
Do you feel that it was because of the tax situation that San Ramon's incorporation by itself was successful and previous incorporations failed?
Yes, predominantly. At one time, when it was considered Western Pacific owned Bishop Ranch, and they opposed it because they were getting certain entitlements from the county, and they didn't want to get entitlements from a new group, which was unknown. And so, but basically it always was tax. There was no new taxation, no incorporation. And actually that was the mood when people adopted Prop 13, if you remember. We had double-digit inflation, and the tax rate used to be around 12%, but they'd equalize it to 25%.
There were several incorporation attempts before San Ramon and Dublin and Danville all incorporated, and it was, let's see, Dublin incorporated first, as I recall, and then Danville incorporated, and it kind of left us right in the middle with just county government. So then San Ramon incorporated. But can you tell us some of the incorporation attempts prior to the successful incorporations?
Yes. Actually, it all started about 1961 with Alamo. Alamo was concerned, you're talking the reason why they failed. Alamo was concerned about Walnut Creek incorporating, annexing Alamo, and they wanted their country style and their rural type. So that was the reason they were against that one. They thought they would lose their rural atmosphere. With the others, in 64, it was Round Hill had just been formed, and that was Alamo and Danville. And Round Hill Country Club had just been formed, and they had a lot of their entitlements from the county, and again, they were afraid the city might use it, which it could at the time. And so that's the reason it failed. In San Ramon, it was always the taxation issue.
As I recall, one of the reasons that San Ramon passed at one of the highest rates of a city ever passing, was above 80%, was that San Ramon was getting relatively few services from the county, and a lot of money was going to the county. And I think money has always been probably the basis for what has happened in the San Ramon Valley. And I remember very clearly, after San Ramon Incorporated, there was an attempt by the town of Danville to incorporate, to annex Bishop Ranch into the town of Danville. And that, of course, would have been disastrous for San Ramon. And so I recall very clearly, and Mary Lou, you may have something to add here, how we determined that we would annex land from the south to the north and encircle Bishop Ranch, so that LAFCO could never annex Bishop Ranch to Danville, that Bishop Ranch would have to become a part of San Ramon.
Yeah, it was a defensive measure on the part of San Ramon at that time. And I think with the guidance of many people like Byron, we were able to put together some city boundaries that did put LAFCO in a position where they could remain unincorporated, but they could not be incorporated with anyone else. After incorporation, after the first city council was elected, what were the first things that the city had to do legally in order to become a viable working city?
Well, it's very fortunate. The law provides that the county will provide the county services for the first year. And that's where we had their engineering and their planning function, because we don't get any revenues until the following year. And so that's the reason. So that was a big help there. We had him, and the people that you hired, the initial people, were well qualified. There was George Gakel, if you remember, who was an old-time city manager and had gone through this incorporation. He had done it for Danville, and he was doing it for us, so he knew. So basically, the first thing you do is you certify the election results and furnish them to the Secretary of State. Then you have to start looking at what you want as ordinance. See, the council does three things. It has ordinances, which are a long time situation, resolutions, which are quasi-temporary, or minute orders, which are very temporary. But each one of them has the effectiveness of law once it's passed by the city council. So you start in, you have the code, that's the county code, for 120 days. And within 120 days, then you got to have your own laws for everything, for planning, for parks, for everything, like I said. And incidentally, that was one of the chief reasons I was saying parks. When we went to the county, first, like you said, we had to go to Martinez for everything we objected to. If we asked for a park, they said, well, years ago we joined the East Bay Regional Park District so that we would not have county parks, and which we wanted parks that we could use for the residents for baseball, soccer, et cetera, et cetera. So that was one of the chief objects of our incorporation. The other one, as you mentioned, police. There was one substation the sheriff had for both Danville and San Ramon, where now we have 55 policemen, 5 beats of our own. And the third one is planning, which is we had absolutely no say because you could not get the citizens interested enough to go all the way to Martinez to appear before their planning commission and find that the item's been continued for 2 weeks. So it was those 3 items that really prompted a group of loyal citizens to raise the money, which you two were part of it, to run a feasibility study to show that the city could thrive physically and financially and so forth. And that's what led it. Now, incidentally, Dewey Mansfield, who at that time was executive secretary to LAFCO, was opposed to San Ramon being incorporated. He thought we should annex to Danville or have 3 cities, Tessahara, Danville, and San Ramon. But fortunately, that he was overruled by the commission.
Do you remember after we incorporated on July 1 of 1983, what was the first department that was set up? Was it law? Was it you as the attorney, that and city clerk? And then we moved from there?
Correct. The first one obviously was the city manager. And then the second one was the city attorney. And if you remember, the city between March and May and July was meeting in your houses. And then the third person was the city clerk to start turning out the paper.
I think that people don't give any thought to how one starts a new city. You know, we all have, what we see is people being elected to existing city councils, and the work goes on. But you really don't stop to think about, okay, you're a new city. What do we do now? We don't have a building. We don't have a telephone number or a telephone. We don't have staff. We don't have any departments. It's quite a daunting task to even think about.
It's unbelievable too, and fun. It's exciting.
It was. I think it was the most fun job that I've ever had. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. And city councils that are elected today don't realize what fun we really had doing things that they don't have the opportunity to do, like picking a first city manager. And the city manager had no one other than the city council for advisors at that time, so we were involved, at least peripherally, in the hiring of the city manager or the city attorney, which I recall interviewing you the very first time.
You were one of the 3 votes that I had.
I remember that too.
Harmon and Angeloni.
But yeah, it was a very, very exciting time.
Well, I think the thing that I remember the very most is that every single thing that we did was being done for the first time. So you had to give a lot more thought, of course, since it was going to be a lasting decision for the city of San Ramon.
Well, what I think was very meaningful is when the city was formed, there were 16 people ran for city council because everybody had an idea what the city should be like. And
some of those people ran against incorporation.
Right. And actually, of the 16 persons, 5 were successful. However, the last election, no one ran against the city council incumbents, which shows that people are generally satisfied with the way the city's been organized and run. And I want to say there's actually policies that were formed by your city council almost from day one. And that's number 1 was the personnel system. Most governments have an automatic promotion system. If you stay on the job for 2 years, you get a promotion to the next stage. You people adopted a merit system, which was a pay for performance, and you would get a raise at if and when you perform at whatever level. If you're satisfactory, it was 3%. If it was exceeding expectations, it was 4%. So that's number one. Number two is you decided the policy that development pays for itself, that you weren't going to make the existing residents pay for new development. And that's shown in the landscaping, L&L, and various other things. In Doherty Valley, we had to sue the county because that was developed by the county. We had to sue them, and they provided two middle schools, one high school, 4 elementary schools,
library,
one fire station, one police substation, and a library.
And a community center.
And
theater.
So actually none of those expenses for what Doherty Valley had brought on was put on the...
I think what By is saying is really of great importance, and that is that the City Council determined that whatever new development came to the City of San Ramon must pay its own way, that the residents of the city, the current already residents already abiding there, would not be paying for any new roads or infrastructure or any of the amenities. And I think that I'm sure Mary Lou, we're very proud of that.
And another policy too, it was the reserve.
Right, that's a third policy, and that's been scrupulously followed by every city council from there on.
Mm-hmm.
As of now, we have over 50% reserves.
Can we skip a little bit to something that's of major importance, which most people are either unaware of or totally don't care about, and that's the general plan. When we started the city, we had to develop a 20-year general plan for the city, which I would like you to explain, since that's your area of expertise.
Yes, a general plan has been referred to by courts as the Constitution for the city. The two words that are associated with it are long-term and comprehensive. And it has 7 elements. For example, the first one is land use, determine how the land is going to be divided, where the residences are going to be, where the administrative, where the retail, etc. And this is for 20 years, so it can be amended 5 times a year, but it's a 20-year plan, long-term. And then the second one is circulation, which lists all the major thoroughfares and the minor arterials and feeders. And then the third one is housing, what kind of housing, what mix you're going to have. Right now, as you know, the housing is very critical in California. California is growing about 900,000 a year, so it needs a housing. And the law has been developed that ABAG, which is a regional 9 counties here, allocate to every city's its share of affordable housing. And then you have to show that in your housing element. And then there's a conservation element where you have to protect streams or any natural resources you may have, including visually. And then the third one is the open space. And as you know, you set a standard for to have 6 acres per 1,000 people, though the law only provides us to have required dedication of 3 acres per 1,000. We still are hitting that 6 acres per 1,000. And then there's a noise element, for example, the sound walls that you have to keep a certain level, a decibel level. And then the third one is probably the most important, safety, and that's the police, for example. You established a rule that you had to have a response within 5 minutes, and that's the goal. And anything the city does has to be consistent with those 7 items. And those 7 items have to be consistent with each other. So you have to have internal consistency and external consistency. Now those were the ones that haven't changed too much since the initial fathers and mothers of the city.
One of the things that I think Mary Lou was involved in with BY, and that is changing from a general law city to a charter city. And I wonder if the two of you could chat about that a little bit and what the difference between the two are.
Well, if you know, Mary Lou was chair of our charter committee that drew up our current charter. There are 480 cities, or 481 cities now in California, of which 112 are charter cities. A charter city is permitted by the Constitution to be supreme in municipal affairs. So if an item is municipal affairs, the state has no authority over it. And so that at the time, one of the reasons was public works. General law says when a city's organized, it's the general law city, but then if they have a charter committee, draw up a charter, the charter is presented to the people, and the people vote on it, then that becomes the guidepost for the city, and that's what Mary Lou, they met almost over a year, I think.
Yes, we did.
And they came up with this charter, which was adopted by 80-some-odd%. And it's only been amended once since it was adopted. Now, I think it was adopted in 98 or 99. It's been amended once to make the mayor elected to a 2-year term and limit him to four two-year
terms. We had that was a great matter of discussion at the time of the charter as to whether or not to write in an elected mayor, and that was probably the most divisive issue as far as the commission was concerned, because there were several people on the charter commission that were very much opposed to having an elected mayor, and there were several members who were very much pro, and so that issue came to fore. And at the time that we were discussing it, we discussed, all right, if we did have an elected mayor, that elected mayor should have be limited in scope to the same rights and privileges of a what we called at the time a rotating mayor, or a member selected by the council. But I think we were the only charter in the state of California at the time to be written on one page. Is that correct?
Correct, still is.
And
I think the nearest one is 4 pages. It is very, very unusual. However, there's another thing that the initial city council form, that's citizen participation. In other words, almost in every major decision that has a long-range input, there'd be citizen participation from the inception right to the end. And that was with the Charter Commission that had all elements of the
yes, it did.
Community represented, and Mary Lou was again the chair of it. And it was adopted, like I say, 80% or plus.
I think there's another highly unique aspect to the city of San Ramon, and that is the cooperative contracts that it has negotiated with other entities in order to provide major facilities to serve the citizens of San Ramon, and maybe
and to the benefit of both the city and the other entity. The school district pops into my mind. Do you recall how that came about?
Right. Actually, well, that was a policy that was adopted. The constituents for the school district are substantially the same as they are for the city. And a good example is the swim center. The city put $5 million in their swim center, which is used by the school during school hours and after school hours. And another city in the same district put in $250,000 over a 5-year period in Monte Vista. So actually, this city here has really taken its responsibility. They maintain the landscaping in front of Cal High by designating